بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome back. In this video we're going to be looking at the question building on the previous mas'ala of when you can marry a slave girl. So we talked in a previous video about it being permissible to marry a slave girl on top or after being married to a free woman. But what if you're married to a free woman and you've given her a divorce? When can you marry the slave girl? Because you can't marry a slave girl after or when you are married to a free woman. And so this comes down to the question that we debated or discussed a few videos ago about when talaq actually takes place. When is it that your wife is no longer your wife, completely cut off, if you like? So let's look at this. فإن تزوج, so remember again, it begins from here. فإن تزوج أمة على الحرة في عدة وفي عدة عن طلاق بائن أو ثلاث. So this is slightly different. This is a talaq which is ba'in. So you want to marry a slave girl or you marry a slave girl, and your wife or the free woman is in her iddah, she's in her waiting period, if you like, after you've given her a talaq ba'in. Talaq ba'in is what's called a irrevocable divorce, when your iddat ends and you're no longer able to retract the divorce, or when you've given her free. Okay, so in the case of the talaq ba'in, if the couple, for example, wanted to get back together, they need to perform a new nikah, okay, because they're no longer married. Okay. Okay. لم يجوز عند أبي حنيفة. So Imam Abu Hanifa, may Allah be pleased with him, says this is not permitted while she's in her iddah from talaq ba'in or from the talaq which is free. We've talked about raj'i. This is the one that you can take her back in the period. We talked about that in the previous masla. But the sahibin indahuma are his two students. So this is the sahibin, sahibin, and they say, well, it's fine. Why? لأن هذا ليس, because according to them, ليس بتزوج عليها. This is not him marrying his free a slave girl after being in a marriage or being in a marriage of a free woman, which is not allowed, as we discussed in the previous video, and this is not permitted. That's what he's saying here. And then what the sahibin do is they bring in a case, a previous case. ولهذا, this is just like the one. لو حلف لا يتزوج عليها لا يحنث بها. So if somebody was to make a vow and that he would not marry, لا يتزوج عليها, he would not marry anyone. He would not marry the slave girl after being married to his wife. لم يحنث بها. He would not have considered to have broken his vow. So if he made this vow with his wife that I won't marry a slave girl while I'm married to you, and then he goes ahead and marries one after he's given her talaq ba'in or talaq salas, then he hasn't broken his vow. Imam Abu Hanifa, as you can imagine, is very muhtat. He's very concerned about being, as protective as possible. So may Allah be pleased with him. Imam Abu Hanifa says, وَلِأَبِي حَنِيفَةَ أَنَّ نِكَاءَ الْحُرَّةِ بَاقٍ مِنْ وَجْهٍ لِبَقَاءِ بَعْدِ الْأَحْكَامِ فَيَبْقَى الْمَنْعُ احْتِيَاطًا بِخِلَافِ الْيَمِينِ. So there's two responses. Imam Abu Hanifa says, well, there are still rulings that apply to this wife. There's still rights that she has. Again, you can see that it's very much about protecting rights and making sure things are absolutely clear. So we talked about in the previous videos that she has certain rights, expenditure and so forth, that he still has to provide for her. It has completely come to an end. So because there's this shubha, because there's this doubt, and in the usul we have this point that الشبهة في الحرمات كالحقيقة احتياطا, that whenever you have shubuhat, which are like doubts, right? When you have doubts about something, and if it's in the context of hurumat, prohibitions, then it's like it actually is happening. It's like al-haqiqa, okay? because we want to be cautious. So it's very rational what Imam Abu Hanifa is saying here, because she still has rights. She still has rights, and so from a certain perspective, she's still your wife, and therefore you can't marry the slave girl just yet. You need to wait. Okay. But what about this response to the Sahibin who use this other mas'ala and say, well, if somebody was married and he made a vow to his wife that I won't marry a slave girl, and he does marry a slave girl after he's given her talaq ba'in or salath, he hasn't broken his vow. Abu Hanifa says yes, but what we mean that, and this is what he says, بخلاف اليمين لأن المقصود, what's the purpose? Why would you say that vow? So Imam Abu Hanifa asked the question, why would you say that vow? The maqsood is not there to say that I'm not going to marry a slave girl on top of it, because you're not allowed to do that anyway. Remember, Imam Abu Hanifa's position is quite clear, it's quite rational. He says, well, even if that happened, it would be invalid in the first place. So what are you really saying? You're saying that you're not going to have intercourse, because the word here is لا يدخل غيرها في قسمها, that he won't have intercourse with anybody else while he's married to his wife, because of course he won't have intercourse with any of his other slave girls, because a marriage a fortiori, if you like, is invalid anyway if he wants to do that, according to Abu Hanifa. Very nice, very simple, and you can see how it works. Inshallah, we'll continue with many people's interesting topic, which is marrying 4 wives, in the next video. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.